Allison, welcome.
Jesse.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
What did you eat for breakfast this morning?
2 cups of coffee.
2 cups of coffee?
2 cups of coffee.
Now, are you like a black coffee drinker? Like, do you drink it black or do you put a lot of creamer?
Whole milk.
Whole milk?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the move.
Yeah.
I've always hated coffee my entire life.
Wow.
I know. And I tried coffee for like the first time about like a month ago because I just decided I got to grow up. I'm hitting that point in life. And I just drank straight black coffee because if I'm going to do it, I need to be like an old curmudgeon about it.
Jump in.
So I drank black coffee and I sat there and I just felt it. You know what I mean? Like the feelings all came at once.
Yeah.
I got the urge to like watch Fox News or CNN, depending on how I'm feeling. And like I saw kids playing on like a neighbor's lawn, not even my lawn. They were playing on another person's lawn and I like, get off of there,
It had some neurological effects immediately.
I know.
It's a stimulant.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Honestly. I'm all about it. I'm excited for it.
I like the flavor and the smell. I don't drink a lot of caffeinated coffee. It's mostly decaf. I have wonderful memories of hanging out with my mother when I was tiny, and she'd go to the shop to buy coffee, and just the smell of the fresh roasted coffee beans was awesome. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, welcome on.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Salem Business Journal Podcast.
Yeah, congratulations on it. It's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been, as the kids say, cooking.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. A lot of work.
Good.
A lot of work. But hey, welcome guys to the Salem Business Journal Podcast. I would like to thank Saltwater Wellness and Clutch Industries for sponsoring this episode. Really appreciate it, guys, and thank you for making it so we can do this. We really appreciate that. As you can tell, I'm not Aaron, and I have zero plans of hosting another podcast. However, this podcast. I do have another project in the works. But until Aaron gets back, here I am. This is me. I'm the fill-in.
You're doing it. You're the understudy.
I'm the B-list actor, D-list actor.
I would not sell yourself short there. I would say you're the man today.
Oh, man. Well, no, that's you. You're the woman today. You are the person. So, Allison.
Yes.
You are the CEO of Liberty House.
I am.
That's awesome. You're like head boss lady.
Thank you. Yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
Since early September 2013, so about 11, almost 12 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So,
time went fast.
Yeah, it seems like it. Yeah. So what have you seen, just so people can get a brief kind of understanding of you and of Liberty House as a whole? What the heck is Liberty House? And in your 11 years that you've been there, how have you seen it grow? And how have you seen the impact that you guys make grow within the community? Yeah,
I appreciate that. Liberty House is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation that was started in 1999 by community leaders who were learning that across the country there was research that was evolving about how best to respond when there are concerns of maltreatment regarding children. So just as a little bit of a heads up to anybody who might be watching or listening, our mission involves providing medical and therapeutic mental health services for children referred for concerns of child abuse. So I always like to say ahead of time so people kind of know what's coming, because it isn't fun to be listening to something and then also all of a sudden hear things that are kind of hard to hear. And what I've learned in the time that I've been at Liberty House is that it's a really common experience. It's a very widespread part of just being alive and being human. Certainly, if we think of a continuum of difficult things that we experience as humans, like grief for one, right? All of us have people who've died in our lives, and we grieve them, we mourn we miss them. But on the other end of the continuum are bad things that have been done to us. And when it involves children, if that was our experience as a child, that can be kind of hard. So I just kind of want to not bury the lead and say what we try to do at Liberty House, and I'll explain a little bit more how, is make it safe to talk about, help people understand that there are really important things that we can do as grown-ups to help prevent, important things kids can do to protect themselves online.
Yeah.
And most importantly, that if that creates trauma, a sense of just overwhelm in all of your senses because of what you've experienced, that trauma can be healed. And that trauma does not have to have the last word. It doesn't have to control the rest of your life. There is a way to work with really good evidence-based mental health therapy modalities to heal the wounded parts inside our psyches. And that is a way of getting our life back, of reconnecting with all the really cool things about being alive. So what we do at Liberty House, we have a team of trauma specialists. We have pediatric medical providers who specialize in the medical assessment and diagnosis of children. We serve children birth through age 18, and that's in our clinic. And that was what originally Liberty House was established to do. When I came on board in 2013, we reached out to our community partners and stakeholders and just said, how are we doing? What are we doing great? What could we be doing better? And overwhelmingly, our community partners and stakeholders said, well, we really appreciate you being here. We kind of need you to be able to step up and do more, just be able to serve more children. And also, we really feel like we want Liberty House to start a mental health therapy program.
Oh, so that didn't exist before?
No, that didn't exist. And so that was a really important feedback, and there were some things that we had to do in order to make that happen. Where Liberty House is located, right off the MLK Parkway in Salem, that original location, is the building that was built by community leaders. And, honestly, I really want to do a shout out to all the people who were the original founders, the original dreamers, our original medical director and child forensic interviewer. Those people are just awesome. And then when I came on board and we got that feedback from the community, we knew that we had some limitations with the physical structures. So we reached across the lawn and worked with the people who owned the building right next door. And they were fabulous. They were willing to sell it to us. And we worked with realtors, and neither realtor took a commission. They just made it happen, and the community helped us raise money, so we bought that building in cash in 2015.
That's awesome.
That's incredible. Then worked with folks and board members. Rich Duncan Construction, for one, just had a huge role. Also for no monetary gain, no profit, in helping to remodel the original clinic. And then we were able to make more space available for children for medical appointments by moving our administration folks and our community engagement folks into the new building. And then we launched mental health therapy program, and that was just really game-changing. And those therapists are licensed therapists or graduates working toward licensure, and they specialize in trauma. So that takes some additional learning and training to understand how trauma affects kids. But the outcomes are incredible. Children who've gone through that program and parents and caregivers have really just said so many amazing things about the positive benefits. So in a nutshell, we have three main outward-facing missions, four, I guess. One is our clinic, our medical clinic, and that's where children birth through age 18 can be referred for a good medical diagnosis, and something that we call a child forensic interview. Because when children are referred for concerns of abuse or neglect, what they've actually experienced is a really important part of that process. And it's really hard. A lot of kids are afraid to talk about it, what they've been through, and if they don't feel safe, that's not going to yield the kind of information and telling the truth that is really helpful. So the appointments take a long time, and we just go slow and at their pace, and they get to play a role in every decision. And then they typically do feel safe enough to be in a room with a forensic interviewer who really just does a lot of listening.
Well, and just to touch on that just for a second. I mean, there was a time when I was a kid. I was in foster care for quite a bit. In fact, I was actually adopted by a family for a long time, but I just kind of call them foster parents because it's easier to categorize it. But I remember there was a time when something really bad happened at home, and I'm not going into details, not happening. But police got involved. They showed up to the house, And they interviewed each of us kids. And as they were interviewing us, our abuser was right there in the room staring at us.
Yeah.
And so we knew the second, if we said anything, the second the cops leave, we're getting our butts kicked.
Yep.
To put it nicely, right?
Yeah.
And so, that's why, each of us lied, because, like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's why, like, what you were saying about the interview process, it's
Yeah.
more than just them doing the interview. It's doing the interview correctly.
Yeah.
In a way that's, one, you're going to get the right information out of the kid, and they're
Yeah.
not going to be scared. Two, in a way that can be used in court, so where it's
Yeah.
actually usable.
Yeah.
And then actually something that can help the kid feel heard and listened to. And and that's what I've heard when we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
That I think is so important about that. Just the interview process, and that's just like one little aspect of what
Yeah.
you're doing.
I really deeply appreciate you being that open about what your experience was, Jesse. And I just want to pause for a second and acknowledge that. That's not easy to be that clear about the experience. And those are dynamics that can make it really challenging for children, because the risk of stating the obvious, when children are exposed to violence or other types of abuse like sexual abuse, it's not a level playing field. It often comes along with threats and fear of retaliation. And so that's a really normal, common dynamic for children to be afraid of what will happen next.
Yeah.
And once children realize that they are safe from their abuser, they're typically more able to describe, and their defenses can relax a little bit, so they can actually articulate, put words around what their experience is. And then all the professionals who work together, and I want to comment on that as well. In the state of Oregon, we have a really good, healthy public policy that says, look, if your job involves responding to concerns or allegations of abuse or neglect in children, like if you work for law enforcement and that's part of your job, or if you work for Oregon Department of Human Services, Child Protective Services, and that's your job, work together with your counterparts. Because there are lots of grown-ups that kids are going to end up needing to describe what they've experienced.
Yeah.
And at Liberty House, the thing that makes it different is that we provide one central child-friendly place where all of those professionals are invited to come and be part of it. But the person in the room making it safe for children to describe their experience is solely focused on that. They use a lot of open-ended questions. Tell me about this, tell me about that. So what children say is very organic.
Yeah.
And then the professionals can have an opportunity to say, let's get more information here. And it's a way of leveling the playing field a little bit. So those interviews are recorded and video recorded, and typically able to be used in a legal proceeding if there are offenders or is an offender that needs to be held accountable. And if the child needs to be placed in a more safe living environment, and that's really the role of DHS, ODHS. So it's obviously kind of complicated to explain.
Yeah.
The short version would be, when concerns of abuse or neglect in children arise, first of all, that's a really important moment. We want to be able to say, especially anybody who's listening, if they're on the receiving end of a disclosure, we want to be able to say, thank you for telling me. That took a lot of courage. We're going to talk to some people who are safe people. Identifying who are safe people is a really important part of the healing process. And we'll work on getting you the right kind of help that you need. And good job on that courage. And so in that, then, we just want to create a very holistic experience so that children can be able to access the rest of their lives, right? And what I mean by that is that it's usually so scary for kids that they can't see beyond the moment.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I often just describe it as like your mindset is you're in a different world. I refer to, have you seen Alice in Wonderland?
Yeah.
Have you seen the second one, Through the Looking Glass?
No.
okay, so there's this moment in this movie and in the book when she's looking at this mirror in a room. She's in like a room. It's kind of like a Narnia kind of feel, right? She's looking at this mirror in the room, and this weird little like bug thing flies by and goes through this mirror. And so then it spawns in her the idea that maybe this isn't just a mirror. And so I've used this analogy for many aspects of like growth in life. Is kind of like, it's like you're looking at a mirror and you see the world as it is around you. And if you put your face through that mirror, you're going to bust up your face. You know what I mean? Like that's going to hurt. Like that's really stupid. Don't do that. And so you're so used to seeing the world around you, and everything is as it is, obviously, right?
Right.
However, if you think for a moment and you're like, okay, if I put my face through this mirror, what if there was a world on the other side? And in Alice in Wonderland, right, she puts her face through that mirror, and there's an entirely different world on the other side of this mirror. But like in her previous self, right, would have been like, that's crazy. Why would you do that? Like you'd be insane. And so kind of what I've realized is life's kind of a series of putting your face through a mirror and figuring it out if you're, you know, and it's going through that again, right? So it's going from a kid who's going through abuse, and you're just trying to exist, right? Like you're stealing food to eat, and you're just trying not to get hit by mom and dad.
Just trying to survive.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, then you put your face through that mirror, then you realize, oh, maybe I'm worth loving. Maybe, you know, I can exist in this world, you know, and then you go from that to like, oh, maybe I can help other people. And also like do well. Like that's kind of weird.
That's right.
You know, and then you go through another mirror of like when you have a family or whatever, and you're like, oh, maybe, you know, my life isn't necessarily always about me. It's about my kids, my family, my wife, you know. And it's like, I feel like you were saying, kids, they're in this world where, from the outsider's perspective, you know, a lot of people would have told me like, me looking back, I'd be like, why didn't I just leave? But in the moment, I didn't think that was possible. It's like when you see women like in like domestic abuse situations, you're like, well, you could just leave the guy. You know, like that is what you could do. But in their mind, the world is what it is, and they can't escape it. You know, they can't put their face to the mirror.
No, you're absolutely right. There are many more complicated dynamics, and in that circumstance, that can actually be a very dangerous move for a victim of domestic violence to take. And so it's really important to line up good supportive services ahead of time. For children, I think it's a really good question to ask, like, why would we assume that children could heal themselves, right? So when we think about it, when you describe that process, learning that you have worth, there's some likelihood, my guess, is that there was somebody who was safe and saw that in you and helped you to see it in yourself. And that's kind of what we do. So it can be a really big relief for children to go through the Liberty House Clinic to get that good diagnosis. There's validation in that. Children tell us, I feel like this big weight was lifted off my shoulder. I feel like finally, for the very first time, I can see a future for myself. I feel, you know, thank you for listening. And that's a part of the process. And then in the mental health therapy process, that's where we can help children emerge from all the protective mechanisms. The human brain has a lot of ingenious protective mechanisms.
Yes, it does.
That insulate children and all of us as adults from really deeply experiencing the full brunt of violence or abuse that we might be experiencing. Those mechanisms are protective, but they also can numb us. And so it's really a hallmark in that healing process to become less numb, a little bit more grounded in their physical bodies. And in that process, all those protective mechanisms can relax a little bit, and then children can get reconnected to their true selves. And that is, children tell us it's like coming out of a fog. So coming out of that fog is, going back to your analogy, like going through that looking glass, like, wow, there's a whole world here.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have worth.
And it's beautiful.
And it's really beautiful. Yeah. And so you just, in my opinion, you can't put a price on that healing. It's incredible. Yeah. And Liberty House started in 1999. We've been open 26 years. We've served over 15,000 children. And the last thing that I want to say about the therapy program is, I think it was back in 2017 or 2018, the board of directors and I made a decision to open up therapy services for adult survivors of childhood trauma. Yeah. Because sometimes children in our program, they have parents or caregivers who might have gone through really difficult things as well.
Yeah.
And they might not ever have gotten help, or maybe they got help, but there are some things coming back up and they need help processing.
Yeah, for sure.
So what I love about our therapy program is that we can offer that and say, like, we see that there are some emotions in play right now in you, which we have somebody who could see you at the same time as your child's being seen. Is that anything you'd be interested in?
Yeah, well, and what's great about that, right?
Healing the whole family.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And what's nuts about that is, like I started going to therapy I've been going to therapy for over a year now, so about a year and a half at this point. Yeah, I started going in March, and honestly, like, that is one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Yeah.
And it was one of those ones where, like, I'm too manly, I'm not going to go. And I did this great thing where you stuff it into a deep, dark place until it goes away.
Yeah.
And I've done that my entire life.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize until I started going to therapy, that those questions about self-worth, and that I still struggle with it, if I'm being honest. And it's something that I have to fight all the time.
Yeah.
And then also, like, the things of, like, when I look at, not healing from that trauma, right, has affected every relationship I've been in my entire life, because the way that, I didn't get taught, like, how to love, or, like, how to handle conflict in a healthy way, or things that, like, they don't teach you in school,
Right.
And, I've always been, like, really good at working, so that's good. But, and so I would just drown myself in work because that's what I'm good at, and that's where I found my value and my worth. But then, over the last, like, kind of year or so, I've started to realize, maybe I, I'm worth a little bit more than that. Like, maybe I can, do other things, or maybe thinking about, well, maybe I could have a family, and, starting to see those things and being able to change. Once I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to have a family, right, that means I'm a father. And if I'm going to be a father, I should probably be a good one. And so what actions and what things can I change about myself now to where I'm going to be ready for that?
And you can let that healing happen.
Yeah, and it's really hard, to be completely honest with you. Like, out of everything I've done, this, like, going to therapy and, like, actually doing the work is the hardest thing I've done. Like, it's harder than campaigning. It's harder than having the media write a bunch of crap about you that's not true. It's harder than, being slandered online for years. It's harder than serving in office. It's harder than college and all the work you put in. It's harder than the abuse, to be honest with you, because the abuse you just have to survive. But to heal, you have to, like, look inward at yourself.
Yeah.
And the worst part is, Allison, is you can get away with not doing it.
Yeah.
I could not do the work, and I could just be a terrorist to everybody in my life in the world until the day I die. I don't have to do it, but I'm choosing to do it because, I love and care about the people I'm around. And so, and starting to get better at loving myself too.
Jesse, I really salute you for, first of all, the candor in sharing that journey. Mm-hmm. I salute you for being so honest about that. All the great leaders in our community and the professionals that we work with, we want to heal our community.
For sure.
And I'm reading and I'm listening to on Audible an amazing book, and I return to it often, Zen and the Art of Saving the Planet. Yeah. It's a Thich Nhat Hanh, the great Eastern meditation teacher who was instrumental in bringing that to the West. And in that, there is a line: in order to heal others, we have to heal our own suffering. Yeah. And what that contemplates is that all of us as humans have suffering. And the thing that I would say would be, what I love about the field of trauma therapy is that we are exploring some really cutting edge ideas. Yeah. And the best researchers in the field are helping us look at it differently. Way back in the day, 10, 20, 30 years ago, we used more of a medical model, like, oh, you have a broken arm? That means there's something wrong with you. You should get it fixed, either surgery or a cast or both. It'll be healed in 7 to 10 weeks. Yeah. Then you can do physical therapy. So we looked at the manifestation of trauma. Mm-hmm. We called it mental illness. And the underlying message was, you are broken in some way. Mm-hmm. Take this pill. And then you won't be broken anymore, and we certainly won't have to put up with the manifestations of your brokenness, anxiety, depression, and so forth. The researchers in the field whom I admire the most say, hold on, let's look at it differently.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma we think of as an overwhelming life experience that overwhelms the what? The central nervous system, deep inside. There is zero separation between our emotional, mental, brain state and our physical bodies.
For sure.
The interactions between the two are lightning fast. And they say we have normal ways of responding to that overwhelm. We shut down parts of our system. We block parts of our feelings. And we develop coping mechanisms that help us to survive. And so many trauma survivors struggle with self-esteem and a sense of self-worth because trauma fragments the psyche.
It does.
And part of the healing process is reconnecting with that and your whole person. Who would you be without the trauma? And who can I be? What's my dream for my life? And so the healing is
just on that.
Yeah, and the healing is so important. And one of the ways that we can look at that in the therapy program is through a modality that helps us make friends with those protective mechanisms.
Yep.
Right? Make friends with those different parts of our psyche that learned, somehow adopted the belief that I wasn't worth anything.
Yeah.
And even encouraging, and this is so much, obviously best done with a good licensed therapist trained in this model, but even to be able to make friends with that part of our psyche that feels unworthy, it's like, you know what? I get that. That makes all kinds of sense based on what you went through.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fight you anymore. I see you. I accept you. And that just internal conversation with ourselves, that validation is a really important part of the healing process. And then we can kind of imagine, like, what if, let's play, what if you actually were worthy, and again,
That's a crazy thought.
there are beautiful, beautiful modalities that help us make friends with all of those parts of who we are. And that can help in that walk, in that journey. And that we offer that kind of therapy at Liberty House, and many other good quality seasoned trauma therapists do as well. And it's just a gateway. It's a gateway through that looking glass.
Yeah, for
to
sure.
like, oh my gosh, I see where the wound was. I actually started believing those things. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have to believe those things.
Yeah.
Right? Because a really important part of that is there is a core self in each human, in you, in me, in the children that we see at Liberty House, that actually exists and can't be damaged by the trauma.
Yeah.
And so we get back in touch with that core self, and it's a little bit of welcome home.
Yeah.
Welcome home to the rest of your life.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
That is how we heal ourselves, and that's how we heal our community.
Yeah.
So that's a big, long answer to what we do at Liberty House, but
Yeah,
it's
it
why
is,
I'm
it
so
is.
excited about the mission. And
Yeah.
again, you can't put a price on it. We are a nonprofit organization, but we are not an ordinary nonprofit,
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
No, it's crazy. And one of the things that's really interesting about Liberty House is that it's required by, is it state law or national law?
There are laws in the state of Oregon.
Yeah, so it's required by state law to exist.
There is a specific component of our services related to, and again, kind of graphic words about to happen, related to the idea of children who have experienced physical injury and their visible injuries and needing to be seen. It's called Carley's Law. Anybody could look it up. Needing to be seen by what we call a designated medical professional within 48 hours.
Yeah.
And so that law, there's a whole history behind that law, a very important history. Carley was a real little girl. That law was introduced in the Oregon legislature over 20 years ago to help put a procedure in place to make it possible for children to be seen by medical providers who have that specialized training in abuse medicine.
Yeah.
So and we call those designated medical professionals. So that law requires designated medical professionals, and there is actually a little bit of state funding that comes through to help support the children's advocacy centers. There are 24 of them in the state of Oregon. It's a nationwide model, over 960 across the country.
Yep. And Liberty House just got nationally accredited.
Right, that's
correct?
right. There's a professional organization out of Washington, D.C. called the
Yes.
National Children's Alliance that is the central hub for collecting the research in the field of psychology, social work, pediatrics, pediatric abuse medicine, and the whole field of psychotherapy. And they collect all that information with their team of national experts and consolidate it into standards of best practice. So they're national standards of best practice. They're extremely rigorous, and for a reason, because if we are in the business of being good response people for concerns of abuse or neglect, that's delicate, nuanced business, and you want to do it well.
Of course, yeah.
And so Liberty House worked for many, many years with our community partners on the multidisciplinary child abuse team. Again, that gets back to Oregon public policy that says folks work together. It's better all the way around. And we applied for accreditation a year ago. We had a site visit in October and received just overwhelmingly positive feedback from our 2 site reviewers, stating that the way we do things here, both in our multidisciplinary team and at Liberty House, was really among the best they'd seen in over 500 different children's advocacy centers that they'd visited.
Yeah.
That kind of puts us in the
That's
top
awesome.
1%.
That's crazy.
And then we received the official news of our accreditation that was approved by the NCA Board of Directors in January of 2025. So that's a very big milestone.
Well, them saying that, Liberty House is in the top 1% of child advocacy centers across the country. I mean, that just goes to show what a great job that you're doing, leading. And so thank you for that, because honestly, Liberty House doing well will help so many kids, right? And has. And then also huge thanks to your staff, to Liberty House staff, and to the team that you've been able to put together, because that's takes everyone on the crew, to make that happen. So that's awesome.
It's very challenging work, as you can imagine, and there's high risk for burnout. These kinds of jobs have a shelf life, and so we work really hard to take care of our employees. Our employees are there for a reason. They're there because of the mission, and I just cannot say enough about all of our teams. And we also, in addition to the clinic and the therapy program, have a prevention education program. And we're all really laser focused on the risks of children and cell phones and social media bullying and the access to apps that can be gateways to trafficking, and they have absolutely no idea.
For sure.
So we have a whole prevention project called I Respect and Protect. People who go on the website, irespectandprotect.com. You were instrumental in a lot of those early focus groups.
I was going to say, I remember me, what was it, you, me, Jason?
Yeah.
Who was with us?
A really wide range of people throughout the community, teachers, parents, and kids.
Yep.
And kids told us, number one, hey, don't shame us. Don't think for a second you're going to take our phones away. It's how we live our lives. And we took all that feedback to heart. And so now what we say is hey, there's something really cool about being human.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we all need to be liked and loved. And we should never feel like we have to do stuff to get liked and loved, because safe people will like and love us just because we're us, just because you're you. So that is the message I want to get out there, because it's so normal for kids to feel like, well, this guy asked for this nude or whatever, and we want to be able to be the safe people in the community to put a pause in that and to say okay, you send that, it's out there forever. You can't get it back. You can't control where it goes.
Yeah.
And it could be a gateway to a lot of really dangerous things and threats. It can come right back at you with threats, and that is a leading cause of youth suicidal ideation and completed suicides.
Yeah.
So I guess we at Liberty House, we're the people in the community that can connect all the dots.
Yeah.
And,
and another thing that I don't think gets talked about much is even for young men, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's right.
Being a younger man, it's hard to. I mean, even I'm in the being in the dating pool right now. I'm not really dating. I'm more just working. But I especially when you're younger, right? You're as a man, you're taught. You typically are pursuing women, right? And so how do you pursue someone? And at the same time, how do I do that in a way that is good and right?
Yeah.
How do I say the right things? How can I be, be that masculine version of myself that I want to, that I want her to be able to see, but at the same time be respectful. And that's honestly, it's a balance, and something that a lot of young men I think are struggling right now. I mean, you hear it all over TV, and that causes the rise of the Andrew Tates and of some of these other more extreme folks. because there's a lack of, well, I mean, I think the fatherlessness issue, I think, is a pretty big one. But
a lot
I
of
think
people,
that,
a lot of people see that dynamic as well.
yeah, because like a lot of these people, right, on the other end of people sending a picture like that is somebody who's on the other side of that as well, who also probably, like, some of them are nefarious, and those people are crap. But I mean, like, for a lot of these other people who just don't know how do I navigate the dating world?
Yeah.
You know, and I would say I still don't have the answers. You know what I mean? I'm almost 30, and so like I think a part of it's also like helping young men or helping young women on the other side of that. Also make sure, well, how can I navigate that world safely and do it in a way that's good.
And of course, I am dying to answer your question because I can give you an answer right now. It is see the humanity in the person, honor their humanity, honor their dignity. There is something amazing about being alive as a human being. Honor the dignity of that other person. Ask what they think. Treat them with respect and kindness. We do that as a human family, our lives will be way different. So it's a very simple equation.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
And it is the opposite of treating people, kids, dating partners as commodities.
For sure.
And we have made everybody and everything a commodity.
Yeah.
And that's what little kids are learning. So, yeah.
We live in a crazy world.
We're humans, but we have so much opportunity. And I will say the question that you haven't asked yet is what keeps me up at night. And if you were to ask me that question, what keeps me up at night, it would be,
what keeps you up at night?
Yeah, I'm so proud of our team.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of the work we do. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to talk about real things.
Yeah.
Because I'm an attorney. I've worked with many organizations in the course of my career, lots of cool public-private collaborations, and that's essentially what this is. And as a society, it's A, so hard to explain, and B, extremely hard to fund. The funding has not kept pace with what it costs to run these specialized services.
Yeah.
And so we've had to launch a campaign, and I'm proud of our campaign. It's called Invest in Hope.
Yes.
And it's about $1 million extra a year on top of what we normally receive, either from regular grant writing fundraising. We receive a tiny bit from billing and some tiny grants from the state.
Things that, I think a lot of people, when I talk to people about Liberty House or some of these other programs, like I wish Liberty House didn't need to exist, to be honest. Also wish people would stop hurting people. And,
that's what I wish.
Yeah, and it's one of the biggest things that I think, people don't think about is that hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
Right? And so Liberty House, in my mind, is the highest form of preventative care for sexual abuse, for physical abuse, because it's typically people who, if you just look at just the stats, right, leaving all feelings out of it, and it's not always true. Like, there's a lot of people who have been sexually abused, physically abused, who end up healing, and they're nothing but the best parents in the world.
Absolutely.
My sister, for example,
it's really
the
important.
best mom in the world to my little nieces and nephews, right? And I love her to death. I'm so proud of her. But then, statistically, it's people who have been sexually abused or physically abused typically are the ones who end up doing it to the next generation. And so by healing these kids when they're younger, by helping them heal, by helping them become who they are, you're preventing, generations of hurt.
Absolutely.
And, and so when I look at people who abuse me and my siblings, or like the foster kids I was surrounded by, right, you see, when you get to learn their story, as hard as it is because they were not good to you, it's also, you also hurt for them because a lot of them have been through that same thing, and it's heartbreaking.
I think it goes back to this idea that it's just a universal human experience. And I guess my mind as a trained mediator, I always am looking for common ground.
Yeah.
Our common ground is that suffering is a universal part of human life.
Yeah.
And healing, well, it can, and it can be healed. And so then it can become part of our fabric. Then we can reach out to others with empathy and say, like, I see your suffering. All right, let's talk about that. Let's make it safe to talk about. And that validation, there is nothing more magic than validating that experience, validating ourselves validating others, and saying, like, I see the the goodness in you. I see
Yeah.
what you're capable of. I see your potential.
Yeah.
And you have worth just because you exist right now. And there is such a beauty in being able to shout that from the mountaintops, right?
Yeah,
So
totally.
that's what we get to do at Liberty House. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be on this podcast today. Thank you for that.
No, thank you.
Thank
for
you
sharing
for
what
your
guys
service
do.
as a board member.
No, of course. No, thank you for inviting me on and
Yeah.
your persistence on that, because I went on a hiatus for 4 years, and it was kind of you, it was Gladys and Adrian Christensen who kind of got me to own Jason.
Yeah.
Who kind of pushed me to start doing things again. So thank you for that.
Everybody's a healer. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Jesse.
Yeah. Well, real quick.
Yeah.
So you got the 2 pieces of legislation
Yep.
that we need passed.
Yeah.
For funding.
Yeah.
And what are those 2 bills, and how can we help make that happen?
Senate-
And then, how could people get involved? Or
Yeah,
what can
Senate-
they do to help?
Well, I'll answer the last question first.
Yeah.
Liberty House was created by the community. We exist for the community,
Mm-hmm.
and we're always looking for community involvement. So how people can get involved, go to the website. We have a volunteer coordinator. We have a beautiful children's garden,
Yeah.
which needs weeding perpetually. And it's summer, it's spring and summer, so let us know if you like to weed. And then also the financial support. So our campaign, Invest in Hope. I know this sounds very ambitious, and it may be completely unrealistic, but I'm really trying to raise $500,000 before June 30th, 2025. And stranger things have happened. Just the other day, an amazing supporter popped by with a check, $20,000.
Wow.
Unsolicited. She is just a leader.
Yeah.
And I can't even begin to tell you what a lift that is for those of us who are kind of in the trenches.
For sure.
So Invest in Hope is the campaign, and there are people in Liberty House's past who have a very similar story to yours,
Yeah.
and who've been motivated to give in really profound ways over the years. Just know that right now we have no debt. We don't pay interest on debt. Every dollar given to Liberty House will go directly to programs to help support the children.
Yeah.
And then these pieces of legislation, Senate Bill 1013 was passed by unanimous vote out of the Senate Policy Committee on Early Childhood and Behavioral Health, and has been referred to Ways and Means. And so right now we are requesting that it be assigned to a subcommittee so it can get a hearing.
Yep.
And hopefully be funded, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that might come from the Ways and Means subcommittee, but that's a procedural thing that is really important.
For sure.
And then House Bill 3196, and where that is at procedurally can be looked up. We really want to make sure. There are so many people in the state of Oregon who have suffered, and there is this moment of turning from being a victim to a survivor.
Yeah.
And it takes the funding. It costs money. It is an investment in the human potential to invest in that healing.
Yeah.
And so we strongly advocate for that. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, no, thank you so much for sharing. And, I'm so thankful to, call you my friend.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate your insight, your mentorship in a lot of ways. And, most importantly, what you do with Liberty House to help kids.
Thanks, Jesse. All right.
Well, thank you.
Go forth and heal.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you guys for listening in. And again, we want to thank Saltwater Wellness and Clutch Industries for sponsoring this episode. Thanks, guys.